Elon Musk and Tesla, you don't want to compete with those folks, okay? Lucid, their earnings just came out a few hours ago. I want to go ahead and react to this clip from Fast Money here. And what we're going to hear is Lucid is an absolute dumpster fire right now, okay? Lucid is a company, an EV company that has attracted a lot, and I mean a lot of investors to it over the past couple years. A lot of people looking for the next Tesla, right? And they look at their lineup, they look at their website, they're like, oh man, maybe this could be the next Tesla. Why does everybody want the next Tesla? Let's be honest, okay? Tesla's a stock that since its IPO over a decade ago is up over 10,000%, right? And it changed a lot of people's lives, including somebody like myself, right? It was a millionaire maker stock, or for some folks, it was a multi-millionaire maker stock, right? Those sorts of companies rarely come along. And so everybody naturally starts to look for, where's the next one? Where's the next Tesla? And a lot of people have been attracted with Lucid, okay? We'll get into their numbers here. I want to react to this. It's a mess. And then I want to share some other thoughts on what's going on here with Tesla versus them. And also, if you are looking for another opportunity, I think if you're going to look outside of Tesla, there's only one stock that even remotely interests me, and I'll tell you why that stock interests me versus something like a Lucid in a huge way. So appreciate everybody joining me as always. Thanks for being subscribed, folks. 26,600 plus subscribers. And also, let me say this real quick here before we get into this, okay? If you own Lucid stock, do not feel like I'm ever putting you down or making you feel bad or something like that. I have no interest in doing that. But we got to call a winner and one that's losing bad and will potentially be facing bankruptcy. We got to speak that real about that, right? It's no different than if you watch a football game and one team wins 50-0, which the team is Tesla and Lucid's the one that's at 0, right? It's not like you're making fun of it. It's just you're calling it is. Like, this is the score of the game. It's going really bad for this team, and they've lost, okay? So let's get into this.
Maintaining delivery estimates at the lower end of guidance issued earlier this year. The conference call just getting underway. Actually, we'll get underway just minutes from now. Phil LeBeau's got more on this. Phil.
Melissa, not a lot to like in the first quarter for Lucid. As you mentioned, they missed on the top and the bottom line, losing 43 cents a share. The street was expecting a loss of 41 cents a share. As you mentioned, revenue well short of expectations. And it raises the question, really, what happened in the first quarter? I had a conversation with Peter Rawlinson, CEO of Lucid, and he said, look, there were a couple of main factors that a share. The street was expecting a loss of 41 cents a share. As you mentioned, revenue well short of expectations. And it raises the question, really, what happened in the first quarter? I had a conversation with Peter.
Look at this, okay? Look at this. That is a disaster. This is supposed to be a growth company. They came in with $149 million of revenue. 210 was the estimate, and believe me, those estimates have been coming down and down and down for like a year now, okay? And to come in with that staggering of a miss, run that on a percentage basis on how big of a miss that is. I mean, my gosh, that's like a 25%, if not over a 25% miss. It's a disaster, folks. It's over, it's approaching a 25 to 30% miss on revenue. Complete, utter disaster.
CEO of Lucid, and he said, look, there were a couple of main factors that caused them to have lower production and lower deliveries in the first quarter relative to the fourth quarter, a slow January. And he said, January is typically slow in the auto business. I said, yes, but I've not often heard that as the main reason for a miss in terms of quarterly production and so forth. And then he said there was the EV tax credit ending. Remember, it used to be, prior to the IRA tax rules going into effect, that you would get a $7,500 federal tax credit. Now the Lucid models are too expensive for that to apply. He said those two combined to have an impact in terms of production and deliveries in the first quarter. And now it brings up the question of guidance. They are planning to build at least 10,000 vehicles for 2023. Remember, the guidance at the end of the fourth quarter was for production of between 10,000 and 14,000 vehicles this year. They're no longer giving that higher end of saying they could hit 14,000. So that's a slight tweak in terms of their guidance. And they now say their liquidity is enough to last into the second quarter of 2024. Previously, they said they had enough to get into the first quarter of 2024. Now they've pushed it into the second quarter of 2024. By the way, they're sitting on 4.1.
For anybody that's new to the market, that you're like, what does this mean? Like, they have enough liquidity to make it to, around this time next year, essentially, right? Basically, based upon their cash burn and what's going on with this company, they could go bankrupt unless they raise a bunch more money, which they could dilute shareholder value, which when your stock's going down in this price, it gets harder and harder to dilute shareholder value and raise money that way. You can take out debt, but Or is a bank going to loan Lucid a bunch of money, especially if they are showing no signs of profitability anytime soon? Because if you, let's say you're a bank, you loan Lucid $1 billion, $500 million, first off, that's not going to get Lucid very far with how much money they're burning. And then if you loan them that money, are they going to even pay it back? Or are you going to take a $500 million, $1 billion hit on that? And so these are things that make it very difficult for a company like Lucid to continue to survive, folks. And that's an important part.
$1 billion in liquidity. I asked the CFO if they have the option in terms of, are they looking at the prospect of raising more capital? They said, there will probably be more capital that will be needed in the future. No plans to announce as of right now. But the bottom line is this, Melissa, there is nothing really to hang your hat on in this first quarter with production and deliveries coming in lower than in the fourth quarter.
Wow. Phil, keep us posted. Phil Lefebvre, conference call again, gets underway in just a few minutes for Lucid. That's a terrible excuse. Seasonality for the car industry, I never heard that before.
Well, especially while you're trying to ramp up and it's not about...
Right.
Yeah, that is...
There should be like an excitement factor. People are waiting for this car to come out. It's slow. January's slow.
Production and deliveries where Phil left off. For a company that's in the phase that Lucid is in right now, you can't be missing on both those fronts. We saw that with Tesla years and years ago. Now Tesla has become an extreme case to the side of success, but the stock is still tremendously volatile. So Tesla, you're going to be talking about energy production along with deliveries, and that's a two-pronged thing that no one else has.
Yeah, and then in terms of the capital raise, I mean, maybe they're hoping that interest rates will fall and then they can issue some debt then. I mean, Guy, I don't know. Its options seem to be not that long, at least now for the next year.
So Lucid is planning on hopefully selling 10,000 vehicles this entire year, right? And, you know, like how fast does Tesla sell 10,000 vehicles? You know what I mean? Like you could do the math on it, what your delivery estimates are for Tesla this year, right? And divide it out by 10,000 and, you know, see how many times they sell the 10,000. I mean, it's the scale that Tesla's at this point in time is just totally night and day different than somebody obviously like a Lucid. But look at the deliveries here, folks. Look at the deliveries. Q1 deliveries, 1,406 versus 1,932 was... You know what I mean? Like it's a complete and utter dumpster fire over there.
Think of something.
Second quarter 24 will be here faster than people realize, number one. So that cash burn is going to happen. They have to do it. I mean, they basically said it. We're going to have to do a raise at some point. Probably trades close to 4 times revenue, which is too expensive, probably getting more expensive given this miss. There's just nothing to like here. I mean, everybody was gaga over the stock a couple of years ago. We actually talked about it being ridiculous in terms of valuation, and the valuation is still at 7 and change, still a little excessive. So I still think there's room to the downside in the stock, unfortunately.
Just if you want to be long the stock, you must believe that the public investment fund, which owns 60% of the company, will just step up and pay whatever they need because they will run out of money without that.
Yeah. All right. There's a lot more fast money to come. Here's what's coming up next.
The hope is that the Saudis will bail out Lucid and just keep giving them money and hopefully kind of go that route. Maybe at some point in time they just take the whole company public, folks. But here's the issue, okay? And I've been talking about this for a while now, okay? And kind of warning people about this whole situation in regards to Lucid. Here's the deal. Look at Lucid's starting prices, $87,000. That's a starting price, okay? $107,000, $138,000, $249,000, okay? They're trying to sell to wealthy folks. Let's call it what it is, okay? I mean, basically, you're looking at $100,000 plus, 6 figures plus for one of their vehicles. So you're trying to sell to the top, 5 or 10% of income earners out there, right? Now, when you're selling to wealthy folks, you better have the product and the brand that resonates with wealthy folks, okay? You have to have that. Like why do wealthy people buy Louis Vuitton or, I don't know, Dior or whatever the high-end brands are? It's because they view those brands in a prestigious way, right? And so they don't mind spending $3,000 on a bag or $5,000 on a bag or whatever, right? But Lucid hasn't done that with their brand, to be quite frank. And if you're thinking about Elon Musk and Tesla versus this Lucid company, the issue is, at the end of the day, they're competing directly with this car right here, okay? This is what you have to compete with. A car that gets nearly 400 miles of range, that goes 0 to 60 in less than 2 seconds, which makes it arguably the fastest car in the world, 0 to 60. That's street legal, right? A car that has 200 miles per hour top speed, 1,000 horsepower, more tech than you could ever imagine what to even do with, and a brand that is far more prestigious than Lucid, a brand that hardly anybody even knows about and anybody resonates with. And you ask anybody, like, what would they rather have, a Lucid or a Tesla? They're going to say Tesla without question, okay? I live, obviously, in very wealthy areas. Guess what? People got a lot of Model S's here. You know how many Lucids are in my neighborhood? One Lucid. Okay, and I bet you that person wished they bought a Model S Plaid. Okay, at the end of the day, like, no one wants to get that car versus a Model S. Okay, unless you just really want to be different that bad. Okay, at the end of the day, if you have to pick out of those two, you're going with the Model S. Bottom line, and so Lucid has to compete against the behemoth that is Tesla, and that's just, it's an impossible challenge. Okay, and never mind that, you tack on the financials that are a dumpster fire with this company, and there's no promise of like anything bigger. If you understand Tesla's game plan, Elon Musk's game plan with Tesla, it was always about selling high-end vehicles, right, and then scaling to vehicles that they could get into more and more mass production, right, until they eventually sell in millions and millions and millions of vehicles a year, which is exactly, they've executed exactly how they wanted to execute, and it's going to perfection. Let's just call it that, okay? And so there's always something bigger. With Lucid, they're trying to just be, I don't know, a Mercedes, or I don't know, a BMW, or I don't know what, okay, of EVs. But why is somebody going to pay $100-something thousand? You got to understand, when you spend that sort of money, you have so many options. At that price point, get a Model S Plaid. It's going to be a way better product. Or if you want to get an internal combustion engine, there's far better options out there for $100,000+ than getting one of those Lucids, in my opinion, and taking a risk on a brand that, I don't know, like there's some new company trying to make it, and I don't know, they don't really have anything cool about them. They don't. They literally don't have anything cool about them. They don't have the most tech. They're not going to be the fastest. Like, and they don't have somebody behind the company that's super cool. They don't have an Elon Musk, right? So when you look at it from all those different standpoints, that makes it really, really difficult for a company like Lucid. Now, what I'll say is, if you're really in the mode of like, I've got to find something else to invest in the EV space outside of Tesla, okay? Here's what I'll say. I mean, if I had to be forced to do something else, I would go Rivian, okay? And why Rivian? So Rivian has the backing of Amazon One, right? They obviously have the massive amount of orders that obviously Amazon's put in over time. Their pickup truck seems somewhat successful. I see a decent amount of Rivians driving around my area, okay? Not a ton, but I'll see maybe one or two a week driving around in my area, and they're pretty noticeable because their front headlights are like pretty much something, so much different than anybody else. Their SUV looks very like a very solid SUV. Like if let's say that the Model X didn't exist. I have a Model X too. If the Model X didn't exist, the thing I would get for my family personally is the Rivian SUV. That's what I would get, okay? And so for that standpoint, I think that's pretty attractive. It's big, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if someday I might own a Rivian, because they are big, they are spacious, and it seems like more spacious than like a Model X. So, as my kids get older, maybe someday I own a Rivian. So I think between the Amazon backing, what I've seen for products from Rivian, kind of them ramping up here, I think Rivian has a real chance to be a good company long term. It's just a question of like, is it worth $13 billion, right? So another way you could play Rivian is do what I'm doing and own Amazon stock, because Amazon owns a huge portion of Rivian, right? So if Rivian succeeds over the next 5-10 years, and let's say it becomes a $130 billion company, it's going to benefit Amazon in a great way. Plus with Amazon, you're getting all the other businesses and whatnot. So that's just another way you could play it, okay? Now, NIO's a potential if you're really, if you told me, okay, now I got to buy something other than Rivian. So let's say I can't own Tesla, I can't own Rivian, let's say you can't own Amazon. So what's your next EV play? And you got to buy something. Then I'll go to NIO at that point in time, okay, if I'm really forced into that. NIO is in a tough place. They're having to compete with Tesla, which is vicious in China right now. Tesla's obviously been very aggressive with pricing, and they're stealing sales away from NIO. Plus, NIO's got all those other Chinese competitors to deal with. So you know, if I was forced into something, I would go Neo from there. Aside of that, there's just absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And Lucid, to be quite frank, is on hopes and prayers, folks. And, you know, you got to be careful of these sorts of stocks. I've definitely, you know, gotten caught up in my past 15 years. I've gotten caught up into plenty of stocks that thinking, oh, this company's the next this or that. And then you just realize, like, it's not. It's not, to be quite frank. And you just got to kind of realize that and, like, this is not the next Tesla. It's not even close. The big question is Lucid bankrupt in the next 12 to 18 months? Or do they somehow slide through and become a Mercedes over time? And I don't think that's a very high probability either. That makes it tough for a company like this, folks, okay? Appreciate everybody joining me as always. If you're looking to join my Patreon and you enjoy the content, you enjoy the value I provide for you here, and you want to give back to the channel, then check out my Patreon. That's linked below. You also get to see the moves I'm making in the market. You also get to be part of the Discord chat in there as well. So appreciate y'all. Much love as always, and have a great day.